Hello everybody, this is Mr. Loy, your friendly D&T teacher. This is the second training video on the intermediate level for contextual use with ICT Tools. If you haven't watched the first training video, the editing basics for contextual use with the same title, I strongly recommend that you watch that first before coming over to this video. Now, what you will need here will be Microsoft Office PowerPoint, and of course the snipping tool to edit the images, and of course over here you will also need to access your Tinkercad Drawn Designer Toolkit based design, something that you have actually embarked on during the term 3 home-based learning period. Now Tinkercad is a cloud-based computer-aided drafting and design software. You would have already registered a free account with Tinkercad, I think sometime in term 1, right, just short of circuit breaker, which happened on 8 April. So you would have an active live account with Tinkercad. If you have not logged in for a long time, please go and access it. So without further delay, we're going to continue from where we last stopped. Over here you can see the same old good blue cup, right? Now in our training today, we're going to look at remove background tool again as a refresher course, and we're going to learn how to rotate and flip images, and that size and proportion matters. So just for a quick recap, this one was copy and pasted from Google Image, and just to check, oh yes, you can see that there's a white canvas, is opaque. So we're going to do a, let me just move myself over to the other side, select the image. Above in the PowerPoint, Picture Tools, select Format, and on the far left side, remove background. Now after a while you would see that the areas for you to work on appears here. So like previously, you have to select the parts, surfaces that you will need to keep. So I'm just going to do this quickly and move on. Alright, so this is just a refresher for you guys. So this time round I did not cut across. I'm going to try going round the rim of the cup and see how goes it. Haha, okay, so the inside I still need to select. Okay, didn't really do a good job. So as I mentioned previously, if you selected area surfaces to be kept, inevitably sometimes for some reason, because of the toning, the shading, the AI, you know, you will have to be patient. Other surfaces or little corners like this may miss your eyes, so just be very careful there. Okay, I believe I've already selected it, so even including the space between the handle and the body of the cup. So over here, do a quick inspection. Alright, if you're happy with it, just choose Keep Changes. Alright, so now you should not see the white canvas. Okay, so this area here is quite close to the object already. Now, of course, resizing, you know, you hold the corner, alright, one of the 4 corners, if you want to keep the aspect ratio the same. If you want to make it thinner, of course, you click on the sides. Alright, you want to make it fatter, alright, or shallower, you click on the top or the bottom. Now, proportion wise is relative. Alright, you have to have something compared with it. So for example, a background. Alright, so let's go move on. I'm just going to do a right click copy. Remember, your hotkey is Ctrl C. I'm going to move on to this slide. So over here you can see a kitchen environment, right? So I just copied the cup, so I'm just going to use Ctrl V to paste the cup over on this slide, and it's humongous. So the point about sizing is important, alright, and this is still too big compared to this guy here. Alright, now this guy is not a real guy, it's actually graphically drawn. So of course, for contextual use, as best as you can, find real persons. Alright, because we are in Singapore, so you should also consider local Asians if you can. If you really can't, then of course anyone else will do. And of course, this is a guy standing. Now you may actually find that his left foot is not on the ground, right? So of course this is also an image that was copy and pasted, so he doesn't really appear in the kitchen background in the first place. So this cup is still too big. Alright, now take note, if this cup is near the edge of the table, kitchen table here, the tabletop is nearer us, so it can be slightly larger. But if you put it right at the back, alright, you will have to scale it further down, right, just to maintain the proportionality. Okay, now perhaps this guy may not be going to reach his cup there or what. Let's just place the cup here. You see that I have a flask, alright, also taken from Google Image. So let's do a quick removal of the background. So you can see that the silvery top and bottom you know, is gonna disappear if you don't choose the surfaces to keep. So let's see whether it's quite easy to get it. Okay, I still got this part here. Remember, you can actually zoom in and ensure that it's fully taken. Okay, so this part here is controversial. You can choose to remove, you can choose to keep. Maybe just a very small gap there, so I'm just going to ignore. Now this flask is also huge, right? Alright, almost the same size as the guy, so of course you got to resize it. Okay, alright, just make sure you click the right person. If you click the wrong person, what you can do is just choose Ctrl Z to undo. I'm just going to make the flask smaller. Now let's assume that he's going to reach for the flask. Okay, so let's move this guy out first. The handle is not in the right position, right? So what you can do is you can actually choose to rotate, flip. So I'm going to move myself again to the other side. With the object, in this case an image of the flask selected, over here under Picture Tools Format, bring forward, send backward selection pane, you can see this part here. When I click on it, it says rotate 90. As you do so, you can actually see that it has been rotated 90 degrees to the right or to the left. You can flip vertical or flip horizontal. Okay, because just now I rotated it previously, so now I'm going to set it back again. All right, so what I need to do is actually flip horizontal. Okay, so you can see the handle now magically move to or change to the left hand side now. Okay, so I'm going to move the guy in. All right, now the reason why I had a challenge when I click on the flask where this guy is near, right, is because the space, the workspace of this guy is so big. Can you see? Even though I've removed the background for this person, but can you see the handles is from the right side handle, from the right hand of this guy. There's so much space here. Okay, so what we can do is actually to do a little bit of cropping to the object so that it's easier to handle small objects and as well as many objects in the same setting. Okay, so what I mean by that, so you click on this guy here and then you choose crop. Remember our basics, we actually did cropping the blue cup into half, right? So what you're doing now is you're cropping the unnecessary empty spaces around this guy and bring all the handles very close to him. So once you're satisfied, you just click. Can you see now the workspace on this guy so much smaller, right? So you can actually handle very close objects when you can just click on the flask like this. Okay, of course the flask, as you can see here, there's a lot of empty spaces around. You can also choose to crop that as well. Okay, how about rotate? Rotate, you can see, for example, there's this curly arrow, right? It's like a clockwise direction. So if you left click on it, you can actually rotate the flask a little bit. So assuming that this guy is actually holding the flask and walking about to place it onto the tabletop, you can actually kind of like put the handle near him and you rotate in such a way that it is quite natural for him. Alright, somewhere nobody will hold the handle towards the bottom of the flask. No, normally they support it at the top area. Okay, now because this guy was already in this kitchen setting, when I included this copy and pasted this flask, right, it was one of the later objects, but when we choose to crop this guy, he seems to be now a layer in front of the flask. Therefore you can see that his hand is actually kind of like holding the handle now. Okay, let me just zoom in for you to see it. Okay, So it looks quite real in that sense. Okay, of course this is intermediate level. If we move to the advanced level, you will get to appreciate, all right, what we do at the advanced level. Now for this cup, it doesn't seem at the right orientation also. It seems like it's not, because the kitchen top surface is doesn't match with it. So you have to find a way, you know, either you crop or flip it to make it look like it is kind of like on the right setting. Okay, perhaps like that. Okay, so it matches with the background setting that you have chosen. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom out and just let you have a look. So in a nutshell, so far we have done the simple removal of background of objects like images, like the flask, the cup, even this guy here. Before I started this video, I already done so. We learned a little bit about resizing, sorry, so that it's more proportionate, and how you orientate the object in question here. In this case, the flask, it doesn't have to be vertically standing, right? Like so for the cup, okay? Because you have to do your best, rotate, flip vertical, flip horizontal, you know, to match the surfaces that in which is resting on, okay? Or for this guy holding on to the flask, okay? So let's move on. I have the same kitchen setting now. We're going to look at appropriateness. All right, what do I mean by that? So let's look at the next slide and I'll explain. Now you realize that I named this slide screen dump. You know, in PowerPoint, right, when you search for images using Google Image, you copy and paste, right? It's good to have a slide for you to so-called dump all the images that you find and work on them. Okay, so for example, I found this high chair and a stool. Now back to basics. Many of us, all right, even myself sometimes, I'm guilty of it. I call this stool a chair, all right? Why is this stool not a chair? It's because there's no backrest. There's no backing for the stool, right? So this, of course, is a high chair, all right? We don't call this a high stool. We call this a high stool, all right? I've not done the resizing yet. And of course, you can see that this one I've not done the removal of background, but I've done so for this. So let's just do a quick removal of background for this high chair, and then we will proceed further. Okay, so let me just select format and remove background. You can see the top area and the bottom part. All right, just got to be careful. You cannot just quickly click keep changes. You must inspect the object in question. I'm going to keep the top rung of the backrest as well. Okay, I think everything looks good. So keep changes. Try to have this habit to crop the images so that the handles are very close to the object, okay, so that it's easier for you to manipulate. So this is what I mean by cropping close to the object. Then you choose crop, and then this high stool, you also need to do the cropping. And if you slide in, you can actually crop like that. It looks very good here. Okay, now the next thing you can actually look at is this. So I have this background in a restaurant. I'm trying to get this lady here. All right, she happens to be my object of interest. I'm going to try and put her here. Now let's say I found this high chair first. Okay, so what I do is I can Control X. Remember, Control X is to remove the object, and I do a Control V here. Okay, so I have a high chair now over here. I can choose to flip. Alright, because the lady is seated in this orientation, so it might be good that I flip horizontal this chair. So let's do a quick flip horizontal, and of course regardless of whether it is actually resting appropriately, so for the moment we just discard that. Let's go back to the lady. So this is a new tool that we need to introduce to you. It's called the snipping tool. Alright, so what is this snipping tool? This snipping tool you can actually find from at the so-called shortcut. Okay, if you cannot find it, you just do a quick search and type snipping, and it will appear as snipping tool. Alright, so once you find that, you can actually place it over there. So what you do is you click new. Alright, new. Okay, now the mode here is you have a few selections here. Is freeform snip. Previously we have done rectangular snip. There's this thing called a window snip, which I'll explain later, and of course full screen snip. For window snip and full screen snip, we don't normally use because it's just too big for us to actually snip. We don't need that. We are going to zoom in on small little things, so I'm going to use freeform snip here for you. So you can see a pair of scissors coming out. Where is the point that starts is actually at the so-called screw area, where this pair of first class lever or a pair of scissors we call are actually snip. So you just click on it, and then you just run along the lady's hand and go all around as close as possible to her as possible, because we don't want to remove background too much. And the skill here is to try and close the starting point, all right, where you started, and then you close it. Now I actually so-called cheated. I already tried out earlier on. So actually I have this lady already snip. Can you see? All right. Inevitably, this is the part of the frame of the back support for this chair. So of course you can use other editing software to actually like for example Windows Paint, you know, you can do the dropper for her so-called pants, and then you try to color over with the same color, you know, and then of course the clothes and so on. So you can actually remove that. Okay, so we're not going to go there at the moment. So I have this lady crop out from this picture, right? So I'm going to do a Control X, and I'm going to put her back into this slide, Control V. Now of course you can actually do the appropriate resizing. All right, she's a bit too big for the setting, so this will be a good size, and because of that the chair will also need to be resized. And we flip horizontally correctly because this part here fits the her so-called bottom on the chair. Okay, now appropriateness wise, you know, it's just nice that the one of the right foot, I think, rests on this support here. Okay, if you have chosen the high stool instead, for example, I'm going to do a Control X and Control V to paste it over on this slide. Did I do that? Okay. All right. So appropriateness, just remove the high chair from her, and just going to put her seated on this high chair. It's a bit too high for this setting. Just going to make it a little bit smaller. Okay. All right. It seems a little bit more matching. All right. So apart from this black support from the back rest of that chair, right, that we saw from the original image, I think this is just nice. Okay, but she's just too high. Okay, so what I do is I will select both and I'll group. Remember, right click, group two images, and I'm gonna resize it to appropriately where she should be. Okay, for instance, like that. Okay, good enough. Of course she's eating something, but let's just not go to speculate. Okay, so maybe she's just gonna eat here. Let's try flipping her around and see what happens. Okay, if she flips, if you flip here and if you place her here, she is eating above the stove. So this is what I mean, it's not appropriate. Okay, if you want, you probably got to put her over here and you got to flip horizontal so that she can make use of the kitchen tabletop here, which is more appropriate. Okay, otherwise just now over here where the sink is will be appropriate, and of course a little bit more to the left side will be good, but of course it's not as good as over the right hand side. Okay, so think about appropriateness. Okay, likewise the kind of furniture that this lady is going to sit on, so take note of that. Okay, so in a nutshell, we've revisited rotating, flipping images, resizing, proportion, and the orientation, as well as considering the appropriateness of images that you actually try to group with, you know, for instance the high chair versus the high stool, and we look a little bit into the snipping tool, and we use what we call one of the 4 modes here, which is the freeform snip. And it's good to have a slide where you can so-called copy and paste, and then you use it as a working slide for your other slides, okay, for you to prepare for print for your contextual use. So let's move on to something that's more related to your course of study. So what I have here is Mr. Tan's, alright, he created this in Tinkercad, the designer toolkit base, complete with the steady hand game and the so-called handle here. Now, what I want to show you is this part here. This is Tinkercad, alright, and of course if you search Tan, his surname, HD, you should be able to find his work here. Alright, so this is Mr. Tan's work, as you can see. Yeah, okay, so if you search hashtag WRSS 2023NA Tan HD, you should be able to find his creation here. And of course, what I want to show you here is appropriateness as well. For example, I'm going to place this designer toolkit base on that kitchen tabletop again. Alright, now when you first click on the so-called design, you'll be brought into this. Alright, you can choose to copy and tinker, but I want you to take note, there's this option here, view in 3D. Okay, so if you view in 3D, this is really good because you can choose to orientate by right clicking the mouse and holding it, and you can rotate to so-called the perspective, the angle that you will need it just right. So bearing in mind, just now the kitchen top, probably I would want it to be something, I think it cannot be from the bottom view, so it should be something like this. Okay, so and of course we're going to call out the snipping tool. Now take note, the mode is going to be rectangular snip because we don't want to waste time going freeform, no point, because we don't want to so-called just surround the object interest like the lady that we had done. So we're just going to use rectangular snip. So we're going to click new and make sure you cover everything, alright, as close as possible. Left click and hold it and draw it diagonally, the rectangle, to cover the image that you want, and then you let go of the left mouse button. Don't forget to choose copy. You can minimize it or you just go straight to PowerPoint, and I'm just going to paste it over here. So let me move myself up again. So I'm going to do a Control V. Okay, so you can see this object here. Alright, it has a canvas. Now this part here is whiter, and this part here you can see a little bit grayish, right? So all these you can remove. So maybe just do a quick removal of the background. So this one you should be competent by now, I hope. You just got to watch out for purplish surfaces. Alright, see, even on the steady hand cover, even the legs here, can you see? Alright, the last part of the leg. And then I think this is the wire that Mr. Tan created. We're going to keep it as well. Just have a quick look. Okay, you see the wire course here? Alright, this galvanized wire you need to keep. And this handle galvanized wire as well. Okay, we need to keep that as well. Now that little space there we don't want, so we're just gonna click it one time, 2 times, 3 times. Okay, I think I should actually zoom in. Alright, so I forgot to zoom in. So now with the zoom in view, I can actually remove quite a bit. Okay, as you do so, you may have inadvertently remove some of the things as well. Okay, so I think I'm happy with this. Alright, so assuming that everything is taken care of, keep changes. So there we have it. So this guy, I'm going to Control X and I'm going to put the guy here. Alright, this steady hand designer toolkit base. So I'm just going to Control V. It's huge, right? So I'm going to resize it to make it more appropriate. Still very big. Let's make it smaller. Alright, maybe I'm just going to do a flip horizontal and check whether it's more appropriate. Yeah, I think so. Okay, I can rotate a little bit so that kind of like a match and resting against the tabletop surface. Okay, so this is just an example to show you resizing, orientation, appropriateness. Now in your D&T design project, right, you're gonna make a prototype. So this prototype, if you use Tinkercad like so, or you do manual drawing, right, you should also consider how and where you should place your prototype in the contextual use. In this case, kitchen environment and with your designer toolkit, so I don't think they match. All right, it should be in a study area, the library, student desk, you know, that's more appropriate. Okay, the environment. So when you define your design brief, make sure you design and make, consider the user, consider environment, and consider the function of the prototype. So another point to take note here is your prototype that you're supposed to present is far too small. So what you can do is you present on the presentation board next year, right? A2 for the A2 size board for the section 3. What you do is you can first show this. Of course, you can actually crop this cabinet here. You don't need that much. You can actually crop this. Okay, you can in fact crop the ceiling area and make this slightly bigger. Okay, so what I mean is you present an overview, all right, overall picture, and then you can actually zoom in this area. Okay, you can present a zoom in view of this area, so that will kind of like show the viewer, all right, the main setting, and then how your prototype is being used in that setting. So this is also something that you might want to consider. Now, without delay, we're going to move on to other aspects. Okay, for example, this freeform snip, I already shown it to you. Down here, I also want to highlight about cropping close the object. Okay, I've taken this from LME stock photo. So one example here is that you can actually crop close to the object, and by doing so you can actually kind of like remove all right, areas that you do not want to consider. Okay, of course the watermark is still there. Now when I click crop, the background is still there, so I got to do the remove background. Right, remove background. Okay, you can see it's a whole area of space here. All right, I could have removed the background first before I crop. I actually crop first, then I remove the background. So this is what happens. All right, so you may want to consider removal of the background first before you crop the so-called hand. All right, in this case I think it's good enough, so I have this hand now, right? Okay, now this is not the hand that you saw reaching for the handle, right, of the steady hand game on this designer toolkit base. All right, so this hand is actually also rotated like so. Okay, and there's this other hand. All right, this is the one that I use. So you have to find in Google Images the right kind of hand to use. Of course, in the advanced training video, you will probably got to use your phone, and you're gonna ask either yourself or your friends to help you imitate, act out, you know, like holding something in the right position, exactly what you want, and then you use your phone to take the picture of that, and then you do the necessary removal of tool, stuff like that. So that will be the advanced training video, right? Now just want to highlight here, if you scrutinize a little bit more, you can see that this hand is a bit fake lah, okay? But I've placed it just nice that the middle finger is touching the handle, right? And I rotated it just nice. What is not good is this index finger is in front of the handle. So if you can put this index finger kind of like behind the handle, it will be a more realistic effect. So that one, of course, you notice here at the bottom right, it say we'll explore further in the advanced training video. Okay. Last but not least, just to show you the third and fourth mode of the snipping tool. So basically we don't use that in our context here. It's because if you use the window snip, right, the mode as a window snip, and then what you do is you see a hand. Now this hand, whichever window is active, you click on it, right, it will snip the entire window. That's what it means. Okay, so just to show you, so I copy and I'm going to go back to this PowerPoint slide and I'm going to show you there. See, it actually kind of like snip the active window selected. Okay, captures everything. Now of course full screen snip is just as good as your hotkey on your keyboard. You know, sometimes you have this print screen, right? Print screen everything. Okay, so it's the universal set. Okay, your window snip is actually a subset, the active window selected. Okay, so we don't use that. And before we move on to the third training video, which is editing advanced for contextual use, let me just do a quick round up, not from the beginning, all right, perhaps from here. When you do contextual use using ICT tools, do consider how you rotate flip images, and more importantly, how to resize it to fit into the environment that you have selected. The orientation, all right, it should not always be standing vertically. If someone is like holding the flask, you have to tilt the flask, rotate the flask a little bit, all right, to match the so-called natural angle. Likewise, we also investigated the appropriateness of the object images that you use, such as the high chair versus the high stool here. And it's always good to have a slide for you to dump all your images that you have done your research. In the designer toolkit base, we also look at rectangular snip in detail and also freeform snip. All right, just to quickly show you this lady here. All right, you just laser around her, you know, and then you use your remove background and do your best. Okay, and of course we're gonna explore the hand part in the advanced training video. So we'll skip this. So this is a pretty long intermediate training video. So I thank you for your time and patience to actually go through this on your own before we meet soon, all right, in the scheduled timetable for our D&T lesson. So stay tuned for editing advanced level. Bye for now.